Hi everybody, thanks for joining us here at GRTV. My name is Tomas Funes. I'm here with Gonzalo Funes, and we're glad to be here today sharing with you some very important information as buyers when you're looking to purchase a home. How you doing today, Gonzalo?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us again, sharing some of your expertise. Gonzalo's an attorney here in the state of Florida, so he has a lot of background specifically in what we're going to talk today with you guys about, which is title work, and a little bit about title insurance. So just to start off, when you're buying a property as a buyer, you're going to be involved with various different entities, some of them being realtors, if you're purchasing with a loan or mortgage broker. And another important aspect of and a team member of the whole transaction is title companies, yes?
Absolutely, yes. They have an integral role in anything that has to do with real estate relating, especially with closings.
And as a buyer, you're going to be communicating with them, and they're going to be doing a lot of behind the scenes work, one of them being the title search. What is exactly a title search?
So a title search, boiled down to its very basic essence, is a review of the public record. So whenever you're purchasing a home and you have to have a title search done, what a title company does is they review the public records, because the public records, more often than not, show you all, it's almost like a written history of your piece of property, your parcel of land. So it shows you all the transactions and all the interests that are tied into that specific parcel of land. So you get almost a complete picture of what the piece of property that you're buying that has anything attached to it or has any interests that are adjoining to it. It gives you almost like a roadmap, if you will, of everything that has to do with that particular piece of property.
Very, very interesting. And along the way that they're finding all this information out, something that we hear all the time in the real estate industry, and that as buyers you may hear as well, is this whole cloud on the title. What does that mean?
So a cloud on the title, basically what that means is if there are any, and a very, very common instance of what we call a cloud being on title is, for example, if there's a lien on your property. So let's say, for instance, you get your roof done. You have to have a new roof because your old one is leaking and you have to replace it.
That is, the seller of the property you're looking to purchase had done work on their roof.
Yeah, but let's take it back one step removed. Let's say you own a property and you need to fix your roof because it's old.
Yes.
Okay? So you hire somebody, an engineer, what have you. They go, they give you a quote, they fix your roof, whatever the case may be.
Yes.
And after you're done fixing the roof, for whatever problem, you couldn't fully pay the amount that was owed on that.
Yes.
So what that engineer would do is they'll place what's called the lien on your property.
Yes.
Which basically means now they have an interest and your property is a collateral for them to get paid. It's very common in the industry that'll happen. So now, fast forward 10 years later, let's say, or 5 years, doesn't matter the amount of time, you now are looking to sell that piece of property. Now, when a buyer comes and the title company does a title search of that property, that lien will pop up on the title of that property, and that will be what we call a cloud on the property.
Yes, and another example of liens could be, for example, unpaid taxes.
Absolutely.
Other type of construction work that wasn't paid off.
Yes.
Maybe a city assessment that for some reason or another. Any other ones that you can think of?
Those are the big ones that are coming to mind. I'm sure there are plenty, but those are kind of like the main typical ones that you would see, yes.
What about a loan that wasn't paid off? Can that become a lien on the property?
Well, typically what'll happen with a loan that's not paid off is the institutional lender that gave you that loan will typically move to foreclose on your property, because a lot of the times when you take out a loan, you take out a mortgage. Not to segue too much or get off topic, but in its very basic essence, when you take out a mortgage, you get a note and you get the mortgage, and the mortgage attaches to that property. It is a form of a lien. So yes, you are correct. A mortgage is a type of lien on your property, but typically the measure to enforce a mortgage is through foreclosure of the property rather than to have that lien attached while and wait.
Very interesting. So the major liens are generally, like we said, a construction lien or some sort of tax lien, or the one that we mentioned before is an assessment by the city that maybe they didn't get paid off. Those are the general liens you get to see. And again, going back to the subject of how these liens become clouds on the title, let's say the buyer's interested in a property and the title company does their search, they find out a cloud, and the message gets relayed back to the buyer. What can the buyer do? What are their options at this moment?
So there's a couple of options that are on the table at that moment. One, they can choose not to pursue and go on with the closing of the property because there is a lien on the property. And generally speaking, a title company, or rather, the title insurance company that's actually issuing you the policy, will not allow that transaction to go forward if that cloud is still on the title. So they can choose to rescind or stop the transaction, if you will,
yes.
Or at that point, the seller has to figure out a way to get rid of that lien, whether it's paying off the individual that has the lien, figuring out however they have to do in order to get that lien to provide what we call in the industry a clean and marketable title. That's a term of art. That's a marketable title, which basically means that the title is free from any defects or encumbrances and it can be sold to the seller.
Yes, very interesting, of course. And as we're talking about this clean and marketable title, again, the role that the title company plays when they do their title search, and that message gets relayed back to the buyer, usually through the real estate professional. The real estate professional at that point will talk the buyer through the whole process of what needs to be done, whether it's renegotiating the contract or, of course, getting the seller to, as Gonzalo was saying, get that title clean prior to the closing. Now, another aspect of the title companies and the process that they do additionally from title search is the whole concept of title insurance. Tell us a little bit about what title insurance is.
Right. So title insurance is exactly what it sounds like. It's insurance to insure the clean title of your property. So let me explain a little bit better what that
They're two separate things that the title company does, right? They do a title search on one, and then they give you a title insurance on the other.
Yes. So you can think of it as two different things. I look at it as part of the process of what a title company does.
Yes.
So prior to issuing a title insurance policy, what they'll do is what we just briefly spoke about, is do that title search. And if that title search comes back and the title is clean and it's marketable, at that point, the title insurance company has the green light from the title insurance company to go ahead and give you that policy.
Yes.
And what that policy does, as I mentioned briefly, it ensures the clean and marketable title of your property.
Of course, they can't get to the step of giving you that title insurance policy if there's any clouds prior to with their search. As you mentioned, I mentioned two separate things, but I see it more clearly now, sort of like a process that they go through.
Right.
First checking the title search, then going to the policy. And of course, you will not receive a title insurance policy if there were some clouds or anything of that nature found on the property.
No, it would not happen. The title insurance company, you have to understand, it's a business for them, and they wouldn't, as a measure of any good business, insure something that has a defect or a cloud.
Yes.
So it's as much to protect you as it is to protect them. If they issue a title policy when there's a cloud on the title, what'll happen, not all the time, but sometimes what'll happen is now after that property is sold and that title company is now on the hook for any liability that has to do with any of that cloud on the title. So they wouldn't want to put themselves in that precarious situation of insuring something that has a cloud or any type of issue with it.
And I guess one of the most important questions that we should all ask ourselves is why exactly would I need title insurance?
Well, for various reasons. First and foremost, as we just briefly mentioned, whenever you are buying a property, unless if you're buying it with a loan, you have to get title insurance. It's a bank will want to not only ensure them that they receive that through the mortgage, but they want to ensure that you have the clean title in order to receive that property. So once you have the transaction with a mortgage with a bank, the secondary step is to get a title insurance company. And what that company will do is they will not issue you the loan unless they do the title search and know that there's a clean title, because it kind of works hand in hand. You almost think of it the same way. A bank will not want to give you a loan on a property that has an issue or that has an encumbrance, because that affects them themselves.
Absolutely, yes.
So that's why it goes hand in hand. That's one of the major reasons why you need or want to get title insurance. But also, if you think of it as a secondary reason, it's an insurance policy for yourself. So you don't want to buy a property, and the mistake that some people can make is they think, well, look, I'm just going to buy cash and I'm not going to have to worry about any of the transaction cost of getting a loan or getting title insurance. But there's a little bit of issue with that logic and that way of thinking, is that, look, listen, just like with anything in life, you want to ensure a big investment. Buying a home, or even if it's for an investment or to live in,
yes,
especially when it's to live in, you want to ensure that, you don't want to buy something cash and then 9 months later you have an issue with someone saying, hey, I had a lien on this, you owe me this amount of money, and
yes,
what are you talking about?
So we have been talking a lot about mortgages, and as you said, when you get a mortgage property, generally the process is that you need to get that, but you're advising here that they should also do it if buying cash, just for their own security and their safety, and of course not to run into any surprises, say 9 months later or anything like this.
Absolutely. I would always recommend that you get title insurance, whether you're getting a loan or whether you're paying cash. It's a security blanket, and you got to think of it as peace of mind. How much is peace of mind worth to you?
Absolutely, as much as it costs, especially when it comes into large investment as real estate is, whether you're purchasing for yourself and or as an investment. As we talked in the beginning of the segment, a lot of this work that the title companies do is done behind the scenes, and you generally don't hear much about any of this, because generally speaking, everything runs smoothly unless a cloud does pop up. But you do run into meeting up with the reps from the title insurance company face to face, generally at the closing of the property. And what they do a lot is that they will prorate all the costs up to the day of closing. And on the day of closing, you come together, buyer and seller separately or together, meet up at its closing table and sign the documents, and then you can safely say that at that point you become the new owner of the property.
That's correct. Yes, that comes from, if you want to look at it almost in the traditional sense of how property was exchanged in the olden days, you would have a transaction, and you would have somebody would bring like a piece of tree or a leaf from that particular property, and I'm talking about way back. This is going back to old England.
Yes, and I like that, adding a little bit of a history here. That's huge.
Absolutely. So what that person would do is they would bring like a tree bark or a piece of ground from that particular property, and they would exchange it with that person, physically exchange it, and
yes,
that would be the pact, if you will, of kind of symbolizing that different or that exchange rather. So now if you look at it in modern terms, that's what the title closing is. It's the day where title officially transfers from the buyer's name into the seller's name. And of course now you have your title insurance professional.
From the seller's name into the buyer's name, you mean?
Correct, I apologize. Yes, from the seller to the buyer. And you have your real estate professional and your title insurance professional that goes over all the terms and conditions, and as you mentioned, prorates all the taxes and everything that's due up until that point.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gonzalo. And just to summarize what we were talking about here, one of the major team members of purchasing a property is not only your real estate professional in your mortgage company, if you're running and getting a mortgage, but it's a title companies. And what they do is, they do the title search to make sure that there's no clouds and that it's clean. They do the title insurance to make sure that it's marketable. They'll do all the operations up to the day of closing, and of course, they'll host the closing itself. Thanks for joining us again here on GRTV. We look forward next time to sharing much more information that we have. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Global Radio TV, as well as Twitter and all the other social media networks that are out there. Gonzalo, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
See you guys next time.